Aaron, you're in, right? Yeah, here you are.
Yes.
Sure. Good afternoon, Danvers, and welcome to the March 25th, 2021 meeting of the Danvers Water and Sewer Commission. As a preliminary matter, this is Foley Rybicki, Water and Sewer Commissioner. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I state your name, please respond in the affirmative. Justin Terrial?
Here.
Michael O'Keefe?
Here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. David Lane?
Here.
Peter Capusic?
Here.
Stephen King?
Here.
Aaron Salufo?
Here.
Richard Souza?
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. David Lane?
Here.
Peter Capusic?
Here.
David Lane and Stephen King?
I'm here.
And David, you responded.
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation, and participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public content. For this meeting, the Water and Sewer Commission is convening remotely via the WebEx application as posted on the town meetings website, identifying how the public may. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, Foley Rybicki, note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Foley Rybicki, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. We have established an email address for public comment. That address is publiccomments@danversma.gov. I'll repeat that again, publiccomments@danversma.gov. This email address is also posted with the agenda and is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents can email comments and they will provide it and read out loud after the staff has confirmed their name and address. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. We will now turn to the second item on the agenda, which is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting held on February 25th, 2021. I believe all members have received email copies of the minutes, and I will now entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
A motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, we need to go by voice vote. Justin Terriall,
Aye.
Michael O'Keefe,
Aye.
and I, Coley Rybicki. The meeting minutes have passed unanimously. Item number 3, we will now have a financial update by Peter Capusic.
Mr. Chairman, today we're going to look at the financial statements of the Water and Sewer Division through the month of February. If we start in the middle of the page and we look at the water sales compared to last year at this time is up 7.2%. The next item to talk about is the cash receipts, which it's nice to sell the material, but the cash receipts is up also. So even though the pandemic has been with us, people have been buying more water and they have the ability to pay for it. The commercial water, as I had noted last month, is down. It's still down. It's like down almost 14%. But the residential water is up considerably, or about 15%. So the fact that people were home all last summer and are still home is what has saved us. In other years, we've had cool summers and rainy summers. Last summer, as you may recall, besides people being home, it was warm and dry, so people were using more water. At this point in time, we're 80% of the way there. Like we need to pay for the program that's voted in the last town meeting. I've looked ahead through March. Cash collection is still coming in good, so we anticipate there will be no problem with us collecting the amount of money needed to fill the program again that was voted in town meeting this May. On the sewer side, the sales are up from where they were last year, and they're percent of head of where they were. And the same thing with the cash. So we've been able to use our facilities and then pay for them. And again, I did the head through where we are through this point. And again, the news there is good. We have been able to use our product and services and have the ability to pay for it. Like I say, residential here, home, that is 95%. So, although last year was terrible on a lot of levels, as far as our water sales and pensions, sales has been good, and people being home has more than offset the. So, at this point in time, sales, the cash collection, we don't anticipate a problem to fill.
All right, Peter, if you could hold on just a second, the chair would like to ask the IT help on the phone. Peter's voice is breaking up quite a bit on the broadcast on my end. Can anybody else weigh in whether they're having that problem?
Coley, you may want to mute while he's talking. You might be creating feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just talk loud and clear, Pete. You're breaking up on us.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we're looking at the February financials. And if we start in the middle of the page, our sales are up from where they were a year ago by 7.2%. And in addition to our sales being up, the amount of cash that we've received for our sales is also up 4.7%. I've taken the liberty and gone ahead and checked to where we've the amount of cash we've collected through March this year, and we are, based on what we've collected, we fully expect that we'll collect enough money to pay for the program that was approved last year at town meeting. Additionally, on the sewer side of the scales, we're 3% ahead of where we were, and as far as our cash collections there, we're also 3.4% ahead. So although it was a bad year on many levels, because it was a warm, dry year last year and people were home, the residential sales of both water and sewer put us in a position to be able to pay for the programs that were approved at annual town meeting. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, the chair will ask each board member if they have any questions. Justin Terrialt, any questions for Peter?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Mike O'Keefe, any questions for Peter?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter. The chair has no questions either. So with no further questions, we will now turn to item number 4 on our agenda, which is a review of the proposed fiscal year 2022 capital projects and fiscal year 2022 budget. Over to you, David Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start with the sheet which you have in your packet entitled FY 2022 Sewer Enterprise. It looks like this. It's a summary sheet. Hopefully you all have that, which shows that we've tried to keep the sewer budget as close to level funded as possible. The biggest driver is a 3.24% increase in salaries and wages. Although we have the same number of staff, this increase covers a 2% cost of living raise, and also it includes a 53rd week. This year, instead of having 52 pay weeks, we have 53. So those two things constitute the 3.24%. Under the operating expenses, as you can see, we have a proposed increase of $126,531. Of that, $98,000 is what we thought was a proposed increase to the SESD sewer assessment, which we had budgeted at 2.5%. It actually came in lower than that. So our assessment is the number that it's going to be will be $4,063. So we'll be spending less than that on the operating expenses. Other than that, it's a pretty much a very level funded budget. There was just a few minor increases in it as far as on the catch basin cleaning due to the stormwater regulations, and on our HVAC contract, repairs to our heating and air conditioning systems. That's a quick summary, but we'd be glad to take any questions on the detailed sewer operating budget.
I'll go by board member Justin Terrialt. Any questions for David Lane on the sewer enterprise chart?
No, thank you for asking.
Okay. Michael O'Keefe?
No questions at this time, Coley. Thank you.
All right, thank you. David, the chair has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next sheet I'd like to review is the summary of the water enterprise, which is entitled FY 2022 Water Enterprise. The summary sheet looks just like this. On that sheet, you can see Aaron, his staff, everybody have really worked hard to keep this one level funded also. The budget came in at just a 1.08% increase, which is very low. Salaries and wages, you'll see it, the increase there is at 1.44%. We still have the same 2% cost of living adjustment and the 53rd week in there. However, there is a few more newer people in the water enterprise fund where the salary is a little bit lower than last year. So it's less of an increase than on the sewer side. The only significant changes in the budget, we had a decrease in the legal services. You see that noted, just because of the historical trend. There's offset the support services. And then also our sludge removal is still going up each year. So it's up $10,000, we're up 11%. We are still getting a very good deal on our sludge removal. However, you know, we're planning for the future when our local hauler that we get a really good deal from goes away, unfortunately. But right now, we're still getting a great deal even with that increase. And I would take any questions on the detailed water operating budget. Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
I'll go by board member. Justin Terry, any questions?
No, thank you.
Michael O'Keefe?
No, no questions.
Okay. I know it's probably a little bit early, but the chair only has one question. And given what this picture looks like, any idea what you're forecasting for rates this year?
Right now, as when we go through, you'll see the capital projects. We're going to go through them. The capital projects are based with the predicted retained earnings that we would be able to take the capital projects out of retained earnings, and we would just need a modest increase just to cover this operating expense. So very modest increase.
Okay. And I guess a question for Peter, and then the chair will defer to the next line item on the next discussion on the budget is, given the cash collections are so good, are you anticipating we'll hit the budgeted retained earnings that we forecast for the year, or where does that sit?
We anticipate that there will be additional monies that will go to retained earnings that will help pay for the long-term capital projects that Stephen has laid out in other meetings. So there's a lot of projects still coming up. So, but yes, the retained earnings we do anticipate will go up to help fund those projects.
Thank you so much. Back over to you, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next slide we'd like to go over is entitled FY 2022 Sewer Capital Projects. Looks just like this. And I would like to have Stephen Kingle just give a quick overview of the 3 proposed projects for FY 22.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. This is Steve King, Town Engineer. On the FY22 sewer capital projects, there's three items that we're looking to address in the next fiscal year. The first one is Frostfish Brook Phase 3. This is a section of Frostfish Brook that takes it from the upstream side of the Cabot head walls right next to the high school, leading up to Dartmouth Street, and also encompasses what we call the airport branch that spines off from the main Frostfish Brook at the head walls and heads towards Burley Street. We're looking to stabilize the banks on that project as well, and do the necessary cleanup in order to make sure that the stream flows hydraulically correct. The next project on the list is the CCTV and cleaning, closed circuit television cleaning projects. This is part of our annual sewer O&M and asset management. This helps determine our next sections where we have to do our comprehensive sewer rehab lining projects in the town. So annually, we pick certain sections of town, we clean them, we camera them, we inspect them to see if there's any defects in the pipe, any spot repairs that are necessary, and that's how we end up increasing, combining our projects for comprehensive rehab. Last item is the just annual drainage maintenance article that we put in the each year. This helps cover costs for any initial stormwater culvert, catch basin, and utility pipe repairs that the street department has to take care of. And I'll stop there and take any questions if you have me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, this is David Lane. Before we get to questions, one other item Stephen and I wanted to bring up was we have had to do an emergency repair on one of our stormwater culverts that goes under the rail trail. It's the one right off Holton Street that you've seen. We've had the closure on the rail trail. That was a 10 by 8 corrugated metal pipe, which was deemed in poor condition back in 2004. So we got our money's worth out of that pipe. However, it recently just collapsed and was beyond repair. We did, how you saw, we hired contractors, did an emergency repair of it. The costs of that are going to total $330,000 approximately for that whole repair. A portion of that will come out of the sewer budget because it's part of our stormwater system. We're going to pay a portion from sewer, from electric because it's the electric utility corridor, and also out of the tax supported budget because it's also used as a rail trail. We imagine we'll have to do a transfer of funds out of the retained earnings to cover the sewers portion of that of approximately $120,000. We'll finalize that number as we get closer to town.
Thank you for that. Let me see if any board members have a question on this. Justin Terrell, any questions?
No, thank you.
Michael O'Keefe?
Yes, I have a couple questions. First one is the CCT Cleaning and Inspections. You said that you pick and choose certain spots in town. How are those spots determined on which lines you inspect and camera?
Hi there, thank you. Great question. Yes, we typically started in the older sections of town and we work ourselves way from east to west. We've determined that a lot of the old wastewater collection system is mostly asbestos pipe, and then it transitions to all PVC pipe by the time you get to the western end of the town, with newer sections of town. So we try and stick to the areas of the older sections where we know there's a lot of root intrusion, separated pipes, and spot repairs that may be necessary. Then we slowly move our way over to the newer section of town just to make sure there isn't any extra or additional inflow and infiltration into our wastewater collection system.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you, Stephen. And then my second question, David, you were saying that you're gonna, for that emergency repair on the rail trail, you said you're gonna transfer funds from retained earnings. How is that gonna affect the rate?
So before when we started looking at dividing it up, we had Peter look at the retained earnings with the proposed capital outlay, and we believe it can come out of the retained earnings and still stay within the policy that we have for the amount of retained earnings. So it will not have an increase. It will not have an effect on the rate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. The chair just has one question. Since I live in the neighborhood nearby, I walk by it quite a bit, but great work was done on the Sherwood Avenue area for Frostfish Brook last year. And
yeah.
I've noticed the growth has come back in a very big way. It almost looks like the side of Sherwood towards Burley is really, really very quickly become overgrown and everything again. I'm just curious, how often do you guys walk the brook or check the brook out to make sure it's flowing?
You want me to answer that, David?
Yes, please.
So just recently, I want to say just before the summertime, I did walk the brook. I usually go in there with my waders and check everything. So we only did that. The last phase of the project didn't go all the way up to Sherwood, kind of just short of that. So anything on the upstream side was done previously, I think 5 to 10 years ago when that work was done.
Okay.
But yeah, typically it'll be either myself or someone from the conservation agent will take walks through that brook area to make sure that there's any real invasive species growing or people aren't dumping behind or in the brook.
Yeah, okay. Right, thanks for that. All right, I don't think there's any further questions on the sewer capital. David, if you want to move on to the water.
Sure. The next one is entitled FY 2022 Water Capital Projects. Looks just like this. And I believe Stephen King is also prepared to give us a quick brief overview of those 3 projects.
Yes, thank you. Steve King again. We have 3 projects that we are proposing in the warrant for the annual town meeting for capital projects. The first one is emergency interconnection rehabs. So we have 2 main interconnections, one with the Salem Beverly water supply that is on Conant Street, and one that is with interconnected with the city of Peabody. We're looking to rehabilitate these 2 important station interconnections for us, specifically more geared towards the Cabot Road interconnection, because we have used that one numerous times as far as when we do plan upgrades or in emergency situations. So we're looking to do a rehab and study of both interconnections, and also plan to implement some of those changes within the Cabot Road, Conant Street interconnection with Salem Beverly. The second item on the list is the State Hospital Valve and Vault Rehabilitation Project. This is one that we previously had on warrants, and we already have some appropriation set aside for it. The remaining of this money is basically for construction. So this is restoring the existing vault where we have a pretty much altitude Parco valve that regulates the elevations within the tank, and we're going to ensure that the vault is confined space, safety for our utility workers. We want to install some SCADA controls for remote control to the valve as well. That's the State Hospital Valve and Vault rehab. The last one is Lakeview Avenue Booster Station. This is request funding for design of implementing some changes or implementing a full rehab or replacement of the existing booster station. This is the original one that was installed with the Lakeview subdivision. It now has outdated controls, mechanical components in the vault itself. So we're looking to update the pumps, update the fire pumps, update the SCADA controls within the vault, and also possibly replace the entire structure to eliminate any water intrusion, since it's a high groundwater area. And that is the 3 water capital projects that we're proposing for the warrant.
The chair will now go to the board to see if there's any questions. Justin Terrio, any questions on this portion of the agenda?
No, Chloe, thank you.
Okay. Michael O'Keefe?
No questions, thank you.
The chair has only one. I assume that the paving of Hobart Street was budgeted in the previous fiscal year. So that I assume that that's being taken care of by that. And can we just get a quick update on when that's scheduled to happen?
So that's, sure, it has been budgeted last year, and Rich Sousa, do you have an approximate date when that's going to be paved? It is at the top of our list, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that will be the first project of the spring paving. So May, June, somewhere in there, there's quite a bit of work to do. So Stephen and I are gearing up.
Okay. Yeah, the reason the chair asked, it continues to get a little bit of attention in the social media. So knowing that's on our nickel, if you will, I figured I'd ask to get the update on it. Thank you.
Yeah, we did have a press release that was being drafted. Did that go out, Rich?
Yeah, that went out.
Okay. Yeah, we were trying to do some positive press on that, let people know that we have not only Hobart Street, but we've got West Street that was dug up, Green Street that was dug up, and so we've got a whole bunch of them that are all part of the spring program. Dyer Court, obviously we had to dig up for the force main, so all of those are right at the top of our list to get on this spring.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. We'll now move to item number 6 on the agenda. Is there any other old or new business we need to address?
Sure. I had 3 or 4 items here quickly, Mr. Chairman, if you'd indulge. The first, Aaron Solofo's here. He has started the flushing program, the annual spring flushing of the system, which for Mike, it goes from west to east. We flush across the town that way in a systematic process. We may see some brown water out there. We already had 1 water break in one area, but an important thing that Aaron does each year to get the system flushed out. We talked about the rail trail culvert on the Water Management Act permit. That's still out there. The town engineer and our staff has just put together the final order to complete, we hope, of the information we need to send to them. We're just doing a final review of that. And the DEP has, said they're going to act quickly on our permits. We'll see. We've had multiple meetings with them. Also, multiple meetings trying to work with Middleton about the new intermunicipal agreement between Danvers and Middleton. We have not made a lot of progress on that, but it's going to have to flesh out with this whole process. It's going to take time. While we wait for the permit and the intermunicipal agreement to happen with Middleton, the DEP also informed us that they're going to go through the renewal process for the registrations. At the beginning of 2022, the registrations for our base amount of water under the Water Management Act, and then we have a permit, which puts an added amount on the top of that. So our registration is a legal registration with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but that has to be renewed every 10 years. That's coming up in 2022. The last thing we wanted to talk about, some good news, bad news. On the capital program, we did have some discussions about doing work on well 1. Well 1 is the well that's located on the Danvers Middleton town line right off of 114. You can see it right next to the road. That well is shut down right now for 2 reasons. One, of the PFAS that we found in the well, which is above regulatory levels. It's not high, but it's above regulatory levels. The other thing is that the screens on the wells were getting clogged with the iron and manganese in the well. Aaron and Stephen King tried multiple ways to clean those screens, hasn't been successful. So we need to do 2 things to that well. One, we need to figure out what we're going to do with the PFAS. And after we figure that out, then we need to look at redevelopment of the well to clean those screens, or to even perhaps even drill in a replacement well adjacent to the one that we have, which we've done previously. That long-winded sentence gets us to the good news, is that we finally were awarded a PFAS grant by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They took care of the emergency ones that were really communities that were having the PFAS issues right away, like the ones around Fort Devens. We were in the next batch, and they finally gave us a grant. Maybe Stephen King, just a quick overview of what they awarded us for a grant.
Yes, thanks, David. Yeah, so we're excited, obviously, to get this grant in the second round. Within the first round, we thought we were really close. We had a debrief with the DEP. They explained some of the things that they were looking at as far as their scoring. We really honed in on those narratives to make sure we really shine bright on this second round, and it obviously worked. So we were awarded the $200,000 grant with our consultant Hazen Sawyer, and we're looking to move forward to have a preliminary design of a new treatment system to take care of the PFAS contaminants between our well systems within the town that we run and operate. So we're very excited to get the grant. We've got all the contracts in place. We're ready to start going and immediately start working on it. It does have an end date to submit back to DEP all our findings and our information by the end of June 30th this year. So it's an accelerated timeline, and we're getting to work quickly on it.
Congratulations, Stephen, and the rest of our staff, Mr. Chairman, really worked hard at putting that grant together, and a lot of hard work putting those together. I do have one more item, but I wanted to see if there was any questions on those 3 technical things, Mr. Chairman, before I did the last item.
Okay, the chair will go to the board once again. Justin Terrell, any questions?
No, thank you.
Michael O'Keefe?
Yeah, I just had one question. The other 2 were answered. So the water management through the DEP, and with all the new developments going up around town, does that water management rate go up as new developments go in?
So
as we're getting more residents in Danvers, does that water rate that we can use go up, or does it stay the same?
So Mike, we're above the permitted amount. However, above the registration. However, our permit was set at a number above what our current consumption is. It was set at future growth, 3.74 million gallons per day on average. That gives us room for growth. We're working with the DEP to maintain that. They've had some proposals to try to reduce that number, and we may have to use things called water mitigation credits in order to keep our, is it 3.72 or 3.74, Stephen?
3.72.
3.72, thank you. In order to keep that, we're going to have to work for some mitigation credits. So right now, we still have room for growth. An issue is that Middleton has been eating into our allotment for growth quicker than Danvers has. We've been very level, especially with water conservation, while Middleton has grown. That's becoming an issue with the intermunicipal agreement because they're way over what their original allotment was supposed to be, and we need to allocate how much each community is going to get of this piece we have under the 3.72. That will be part of the agreement that's there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, the chair has a couple questions on that last topic. If Middleton continues to consume more, can we shut them down, or how do we put pain in the system or get them to comply?
You just got to the nitty-gritty of the intermunicipal agreement. Not only if they go over their allotment, what if they violate other provisions of the Water Management Act, and who is going to be the enforcing authority on that? And the DEP has put us in a position, well, you guys are supposed to be that. Well, we need something, an ability to enforce. So you're getting to the crux of how this new agreement and the intermunicipal agreement is going to work. That's what we're trying to figure out. We've made some proposals. We're just not ready to talk about them yet, but we'll see how it works out when it gets to something more of a public document. The other issue that we're fighting with the DEP is, or arguing, is that we also have what's called the summer use cap. It limits, not only do we have an average per daily consumption over the year, we have a separate cap in the summer months, which is intended to be so we don't waste too much water on outside watering during the summer months. So we have to negotiate that with them also.
Okay. All right, the second question that I had related to the registration that's becoming due in 2022. What's the thought process? Do you think we're going to get further limited, or do you think they'll let us grow? What's the temperature check on that?
Our initial meeting with the DEP shows that the limits that they're going to put on those registrations are very similar to what we already have, because we're in a stressed basin and we already had to go through a permit arbitration with them or mediation once before. So for us, we don't see a drastic difference. There's a lot of towns in the Commonwealth that don't have the conservation restrictions that we have. We see that they would be seeing more of an impact than us. Stephen, would you agree with that, Stephen King?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they're looking to impose permit type restrictions on registrations.
That we already have.
That we already have.
And is there pain in the system for non-compliance on our part if we don't meet them?
So the way it is set up, it's a two-tiered system. They have one where you make certain violations and you have to do enhanced water conservation, and then they retain the right to do their per day penalties, which could be up to, I think it's up to $15,000 a day they could assess. So two-tiered. First is they do enhanced water constriction where they say, you guys can't do any outside watering. And then secondly, for a violation that was really bad, they could do a monetary penalty.
Okay. All right, and then the last question the chair has was, I was looking at some of my older notes in my Water and Sewer Commission file, and I remember at a point in time we were talking about future water sources in town, and we had been looking at the Rebecca Nurse homestead, and we kind of walked away from that. Do we have any other new places around town under consideration for sources of water?
Not good ones. The town engineer has looked at a few others. Any you want to mention today, Stephen?
Nothing of promise yet that we're really dived into and done a deep study into, but we are still looking at that option as far as an alternate water source within the town, within our own North Coastal Basin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keeping our eyes open, nothing promising right now.
Okay. Thank you for that. We can continue.
The last thing, another good news, bad news, I think, yes. Probably saddest for me is our business manager, Peter Capusic, has announced his retirement from the town of Danvers at the end of May. So after an illustrious career and obviously a very strategic right-hand person to myself, Peter is he has another life to jump into. So Peter will be with us full-time for another 2 months. Peter has worked very hard at some succession planning when he created the position for Angelica, and we got Angelica Medina on board, and Angelica has made great strides with the department. Peter retires at the end of the month. Angelica will definitely be acting business manager for us, and she'll be a leading candidate in the recruitment process. And we know where Peter lives, so hopefully we get him to help us somewhat. But it's with remorse. But congratulations to Peter on retiring at the end of May.
I'm sure the chair is speaking for the rest of the members of the board and extending our congratulations to you, Peter, for a job well done for us since I've been involved with this commission. And I can tell you right now, we're going to miss you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
I second that as well, Peter. Thank you.
Hey, Peter, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, David, anything else from your end?
That's all tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The chair will now go to each board member and see if there's any new or old business they would like to bring up. Justin Terrell?
No, Coley, thank you.
Okay, Michael O'Keefe?
I just want to touch base on the meter issue. Are they still having problems with those gaskets and the seals leaking on the water meters?
So yes, so just like I reported at the Selectmen's budget review, we're still having that issue. We're losing a few every week, and it's so Rich Sousa, the director of operations, is headed up talking to the supplier and the manufacturer about that process. Right now, they're standing behind it. They're coming through and replacing them as they go. Obviously, we're having to do the labor on that. And like I mentioned, Selectmen, if there's ever a water leak, they are standing right behind the insurance claim and paying for that. Rich is trying to work to formalize that agreement with the manufacturer and the supplier. And also, we've got a few people that were concerned about their meter. Would it be leaking? Aaron Solofo has jumped on those situations, sent a guy out. If there's any question, we think it's one of the meters in that batch and there's a chance of leaking, we'll change it right out for the person.
Thank you for the update, Dave.
Okay, the chair has no further questions. I will now turn to, let's pull the calendars out and figure out when our next meeting is going to be. Recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, the third week in April does not work well for me. However, the 29th of April would work. Thursday, the 29th.
Tuesday, 5:30?
That would be the first recommendation, yes.
Yeah. The chair will now go to the board. Justin Terrell, does that date work for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Mike O'Keefe?
Works for me as well. Thank you.
Okay, it works for the chair, so why don't we go ahead and book that time?
Fantastic.
Okay. With no further business to conduct, the chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. That's a unanimous vote. At this point in time, our meeting is concluded. Good evening, Danvers. Stay safe and mask up. And thanks to everybody from the town for helping us out with tonight's meeting. Thank you.